Man, it's a beautiful day out here. There's Mr. Chris Hubbs.
Hello.
Jeremy here, Jeeps Unlimited Parts Breakers, 303-666-9020. Do my weekly update. Always have a little bit of a direction in mind. Hey, Chris, there's one more here to pop the cover on when you come back.
35?
Yep.
Okay.
Just checking some axles at the moment. But anyway, so what I was saying is I like to do weekly just because things change out here so much. We are a full production yard, moving and shaking all the time. Really don't have a wink of downtime. So, but when we do these videos, I usually have something in mind. I've had a customer request or something else that I've been thinking of doing. So they're somewhat, less boring. I guess I can say. Not still, nobody's blowing themselves up or like a lot of videos that you see out there in today's world. But nonetheless, yeah. So without further ado, the kind of the goal or the topic of this one is couple frames, couple tubs. If you're interested, if you're a shop out there, which we already work with a handful, we don't do a lot of bulk pricing unless it's a decent amount, because our TJ, let's just put it this way, our TJ frames are so easy to sell, especially our 9702s, 03, 06 6-cylinders. The only one that we sometimes sit on, and we don't even have any right now, are the 2.4s, which is just a matter of lopping some mounts off. But anyway, that's kind of how they sit. So there's not a huge discount on those unless there's a ding on them, they're tweaked at all, or they've been modified. Okay, then we discount them, and they're usually a pretty good discount on those ones, at least half off, sometimes even more than that, depending on exactly what it needs. And then again, as far as tubs go, we're going to be very similar as that. I mean, most of our tubs, TJ tubs, don't move as quickly as a YJ tub does. YJ frames don't move as quickly as TJ frames. So that's kind of how that swings out. With that said, our quality grade A TJ tubs sell very quickly. And that's only because they're really hard to find. Just absolutely, pure butter, nice clean tub. So as far as the TJs or the YJs or the CJs for that. So without any more said on that, these guys here, which are still fairly whole other than the frame's not underneath them, we're talking grade A's is so we think. I mean, it's been a few weeks since I've seen the underside of these, but I believe these are both grade A's, meaning that there's not going to be any rust on them whatsoever, and that the dings or dents on them are minor. And if there is dings or dents, there's a lot of them don't even have those, they're going to be in an area that's fairly easy to repair, something that's not boxed in. A lot of these TJs have boxed in areas, and they're a little harder. They're blind repairs in a sense. So obviously body shops can do that work, no problem. But the average Joe typically shies away from repair work that's going to be in an area that they can't, swing a hammer at, in a sense. So keep that in mind. So we have a couple of the early ones right here that are going to be top quality, top grade, A plus. And we'll fully dismantle down to the nuts, bolts, bare tub, and get final videos and whatnot like we always do. So these guys are not listed. So if you're looking for a TJ tub, guys, and you want a quality one, we got a black, a green one. One of these black ones is already sold, and I have two of them here. So one of these is gone, but we have an 03 to 06 black, and then we have another 03 to 06 black up there. And those are all, again, grade A. My two early black tubs, which one of them is spoken for, is this one and this one. And as far as which one is which, I'm not sure. I know they know inside, so I can get that later. But we have a red grade A, high grade A TJ tub up there. That's early 9701. And then we have a green, and I would say this is like a B plus. It's rust free, does have a couple dings on it, but nothing major on the 02. And the 02, for those of you who don't know or do know, the 02 is on its own. It's the 1 year off, 1 year only. Now it will work 97 to 06, and so will a 97 to 01 work on a late, and a late work on an early. They'll bolt up the exact same way. They use the same bolt holes and frame mounts, but there is some differences with the rear seat, with some of the channeling on the inside, which is neither here nor there. It's more of an aesthetic and a strength thing. And then of course the firewall, they changed the cutouts on them from the early style to the non-cutout that you see on these late styles, okay? And then if you're really interested, we have some fairly good quality CJ 5 stuff right now. We're completely out of, we had 5 grade A 7 tubs came in, $5,000 a pop, and we had them sold in 3 days. They're super expensive. There's no wiggle room on those hardly ever, unless there's got any blemishes, and then we obviously go down from them, but we already had those lined up and move. So, but they were beautiful, beautiful Arizona, California tubs. So, all right. So we got this guy early. This is a 60s-ish or maybe a 70-71. I'm not 100%. 70-71 there. And then we have a beautiful 72-75 CJ6 tub, which is probably the rare of the rare, and that's mint shape. So that's up. And then we have a couple of these 76-83 stuff sitting out here. A little damage on that one, but more just body work. You can see the firewall's kind of banged up there. But overall, that's actually a fairly solid tub. So, and almost rust free. Another early high grade TJ tub. You see all of our shit is in our high grade tubs. We've been so busy this year. Normally we go after these high grades immediately and get them listed, but we've been so busy. It's not we haven't needed to, it's just we just haven't had the time. So we're amped to get those done. Hopefully next couple weeks we can get those tore down. This gets into your lower grade, in your B-ish, low Bs, high Bs, depending on what it is. This one is already listed. It's online. I think it's like $18.99. I usually don't put pricing, but I'm just gonna throw it out there. It was damaged and then it was repaired. And man, that wind picked up out of nowhere. Crazy. Absolutely no wind whatsoever. And we got this little, we don't get tornadoes here, luckily. That's more of the front range. But anyway, looking up at the heavens, what did I do? No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, yeah, so that one's got, that one you can see online, so I'm not gonna go over it too close. This one is pretty beat up. This would be like a C, and really the only reason we even keep something like this is A, we can cut torque pockets out, which we sell quite a bit out of damaged tubs. Those are just the channels that go to the bottom of the floor. And then the other thing is there are people building crawlers. I actually delivered one to Buffalo, New York on my way out to Maine last year. We had, let's see, 8 tubs on that trip and 19 frames. So frames are easy because I stack them as long as people have forklifts, which most people did. Otherwise, they had a whole group of people. But anyway, so we delivered one of these, and I just got photos of that thing back. And let me tell you, I was a little bit nervous about bringing out a real, like this kind of beat up tub, because this, I mean, this isn't it, but you know, and it was actually worse than it was on a YJ, but they came across the border and grabbed it. They sent me photos recently, and it just absolutely mind-boggling. You know, we're like part experts, but as far as skills and repairing body work, I just hands down give it to the body guys out there that it's like an art form, because these guys obviously knew what they were doing, and it came out just spectacular. You would never have thought the tub I sent them ended up being that, and they were happy as can be. So that's why we keep some of those around, but a lot of those, if they're too far gone, we just end up cutting things on them and going from there. This is another one that's been hit in the rear, not super hard. We don't buy a lot of wrecks, but every once in a while something rolls in. But it's should have a good floor. Still got some stuff in it we can peel off. And then this one here is actually a really nice tub. I did a video on this one last week. I had this thing sold, but we did a pre-sale on it like we do sometimes. And the torque pockets came out to be where they needed to be repaired. And unfortunately, when we hold true, if we say it's one way, even as a pre-sale, and it ends up being, not what we say it is, then we'll find you something as clean or better than what we originally said. And that's where we're kind of at on this guy. So this one is a beautiful white tub. It's an early 9701. It does have torque pockets that are failing and will need to be repaired. And you guys possibly being a body shop may have a better means of doing that than our means, but OEM torque pockets is what we carry here. We don't sell the aftermarket ones. I've seen them online. They don't look super expensive. So, and then if you're curious ever for you guys that are in Midwest, when I went on that trip, I actually delivered a couple truck beds, rust-free truck beds out here on some of the newer trucks, and delivered to Ohio, a few areas out there. So this is a mid-grade. Again, hopefully the torque pockets are good. We won't know until we separate them. Got a couple dingers on the lower rocker up here, and then one dinger back there. And we got one little crease up here. This is a boxed in area, so not as hard to pull because there's a couple ways I've seen the local body guys fix these and pull them with that front fender, kind of a bracket they build. But nonetheless, more damage than, you know, a non. So this would be like a B. If it turns out to be rust free, it'll be a solid B, and price accordingly as far as that goes. And then this frame, again, it's got a lot of dirt on it right now, but if it cleans up nice, you know, we don't prep our frames we prep them, clean them, but we don't paint them. We want you to see as unmolested form as it is. If everything checks out, we measure them, we scope them just to make sure there's nothing going on the inside. If all that checks out on it and it's just the modifications that's been done on this frame, which was a long arm kit, if you're familiar with those, they have to lop off the lower control arm mounts on the frame side. You can kind of see it right there. If you're dealing with rust, typically that's not a rusty thing that goes. So you can usually cut your own, or you know, you can actually cut those out pretty easily. Even a local shop here in town's done them for us before when we've fixed them before. So if this frame checks out perfect and we repair it, it's just a regular price. But it's a good opportunity to pick up a discounted frame, because there's a decent amount of a discount on modified frames like this, and still be able to use it as intended and not have to worry about it being straight. But we'll have to measure that one and see how it comes out before we kind of put our stamp on it. All right, I think that pretty much covers that stuff. We got a good amount of YJ frames right now. I bought in bulk myself on some of that stuff, and I can pass the deal along that I have for those. A lot of our YJ frames are not accurately updated on our inventory right now, so that's why you're seeing them. This is an A 6-cylinder here. It's absolutely beautiful. All the black paint you see on it's factory paint from 30 plus years ago. So that's how clean a TJ or a YJ frame is going to be out of our yard. Even the CJ frames, which I just moved one this morning, I got another one up there that's absolutely gorgeous. There's a wide track frame. So that's going to be your A's. Most of our frames right now are going to be A's for YJs, and then we have a couple B's, which are going to be these guys, which again, these will be checked out. These have not been checked out since we brought them in, measured, scoped, that kind of thing. And if all we're dealing with is just loss of paint on the outside and there's actually no material loss, you can see nice and smooth, no surface, just oxidation. We don't even usually discount those down to lower grades because obviously there's not much you have to do to them. But because we have a few of them, we price these accordingly. And I think we price them as C's even. So that's a good opportunity to grab a couple 4-cylinder frame. This is actually a 6-cylinder frame. Those we don't have as big of a discount on just because they're a little harder to get. But those, actually these are all 6-cylinder frames. So these guys are not going to be, they'll be discounted, but just not as heavy of a discount. I thought I had more 4-cylinders, but I might have thinned them out. We had them on a huge shelf for a while. I think there's a couple out here, but we might be down to our last few. And so these guys 6-cylinder, that top one, this has got some scale build up in this pocket here. Definitely want to get in here and, if nothing else, build this back up or clean it up with a sand if you're doing sandblasting. The back cross member's in good shape, and again, we'll still scope them just to double check everything. But and then those bottom two are actually A's. Those look beautiful. Again, we'll still have to do our due diligence on them. That looks like an A over there. That's a 4-cylinder. That's a 6-cylinder A. Maybe a B, actually, and I'll tell you why. Yeah, so this will be a B. This is a perfect example of a YJB. It's actually in pretty good shape. Frame rails look solid. You know, we'll do our same thing. They'll go through the same scrutiny. But the difference on this guy, look at that goofy brackets on there. So they did a shackle reversal on it, or so it appears. Let's see. Yeah, it's shackle reversal. It's just kind of got like a homemade shackle reversal. So anytime it's modified like that, and it's not modified in a way that we would do ourselves or done with looks almost like angle iron bracket or shelving or something. I don't know, but we'll discount this down. It'll be discounted a decent amount, considering these are already kind of cheap. That one's got a dinger on it on that mount there. Those are actually not too bad looking. And then this is the part I've seen when I was looking at it a second ago. They've lopped the mounts here, or the frame. This cross member is replaceable. You can replace the whole section. That was probably from an aftermarket bumper they had on it. I'm pretty sure this one came in with an aftermarket bumper. Here's that 4-cylinder one. So if you're wanting, again, if you're a shop out there, if you're just an individual and just need a frame, don't worry about it. Give us a call. Again, YJ Frames, especially 2.5s. And if you're wondering what you have to do, if you have a 6-cylinder, you want to save some money, and you can weld, or you have a buddy who welds, know a shop that welds, buy a 4-cylinder frame if we're bulked up on them. And right now I'll have to double check. I thought we had more than I'm seeing right now. But typically you can buy a 4-cylinder lower grade that's still going to be a super high grade for what you guys are dealing with out there. And then move the motor mounts. Those 2 mounts come up further. This is a 4-cylinder here, you see? So they're moved back. So they sit, let's see here, placement. The shadow's throwing me. But anyway, it gets moved up, I don't know, 3.5, 4 inches or so. And the easiest way to do it, just for those of you who've never done something like this, you put your belly pan in it. You get your stem of your Jeep. So in a 6-cylinder, your engine, transmission, transfer case. You put your mount on the bottom. You go ahead and lop these guys off cleanly. And what I like to do, if you salvage them, and sometimes people lop these off not in a good way and they can't salvage them, but if you can salvage them, go ahead and bolt them up to your mounts on your engine, and then get your measure, because you're still going to want a center point. But essentially where that thing sets in that pan, where that mount, that tranny mount sits, is exactly where they need to sit on the frame. Without much of an effort, you can tack them in place, remove your engine, and then go to town from there. And welding is something I can do, and a few of my guys around here are good at. So not just like half-ass welding, but like quality welding, which I know is to be desired occasionally. So, all right, that pretty much takes care of everything as far as most of that. I want to point out real quick, because there was a comment or a question on, do we have sections or frames? One thing you got to know about my yard is that I rarely buy wrecked Jeeps. There was obviously a couple of them over there, maybe one, maybe 2. In the last year, we probably bought maybe, I kid you not, maybe 5 tops. And YJs, TJs, whatever. We really try not to buy them wrecked. Front end, rear end, rollovers, if they're light, I'll entertain them. It's so freaking hard to buy these things for a reasonable amount. And what I find is that typically when you buy them wrecked at auction, thinking you're getting this great deal, by the time you get into it and figure out what's actually wrong with it, especially if you're trying to repair it, it ends up being more expensive than had you just bought, one off the road. So a lot of our Jeeps come in off the road. Most of my Jeeps, if not all of them, we live in Colorado, I would say 80% of the inventory we buy comes from Arizona, Nevada, and California. I have family out there. My wife's from Cali. My in-laws are in Nevada, and I got uncles in Phoenix. So I got good connections down there. I take trailer loads out, and usually it starts about June. So we'll replenish our inventory and we get ready for our busy season again, which is January through June, July, depending. Okay. So with that said, that's why you don't see a lot of cut stuff in my frame. We get calls all the time. Well, can I just get a frame half? Oh, yeah, we have them sometimes. Usually a frame half is what you're seeing here. This one's just stacked up on another CJ frame at the moment. And I typically try to do them a little bit more there. I know this one, the frame rails to the center section sold, so we sold those off, but a couple $100, depending on how much you're getting or what you're getting all, is really, but you still spend a decent amount on it, especially on a TJ. On a YJ, they're insignificantly cheap for sections of frames. But again, we don't cut them unless they're bent. And I don't buy wrecked Jeeps very often. So there's one TJ frame in this entire yard that hasn't been cut yet. It was just pulled, and it has a tweak in it. And I had 2 or 3 of my guys say it was straight. They obviously were just looking at it. My master tech saying, no, it's definitely bent. And we got a jig. We set them in just to do a real quick down and dirty, and then we'll measure them. But we've set in the jig, and it was clearly bent in, but it's hard to see. And I'm trying to see where we put that guy, so I can kind of show you what what we're looking at as far as that stuff goes. But I'll run through these real quick. This frame here is, I mean, it's off of an unwrecked TJ. It's sitting on its frame right now. So hopefully it's good. I know it's got a little bit of a zinger in the back because it's got this guy here, and it looks like when they pulled out whatever they got stuck on, they ripped out kind of the rear side of that cross member we were showing you over there. So if that didn't bend anything, which if it's just something they pulled out, you know, got stuck on a rock or a fire hydrant or whatever the heck that was, who knows, but and everything else checks out on it, it will be discounted still, and a decent discount, especially because we don't discount these very often. But we'll have that one available. And then if it's worse than we think, but still salvageable, it'll be really cheap, and we'll go from there, okay? This is a YJ we just got in. We got some nice YJ doors right now. I think I have 2 sets of TJ doors, all rust-free at the moment. So if there's small parts you need, or axles, especially because almost all our axles are nice, clean axles, you're not dealing with rust. This is going to be, or should be, a high quality A frame, and there's no wiggle room on these frames. But the fact that I even have one, this thing just came in last week, it won't last long. That should check out. Obviously it's not wrecked. Nice clean Jeep. It had 152K on it, so we'll get a good tub out of that one. And then hopefully, like I said, that frame checks out, and that will be one of our A's, and that will get sold very quickly. Usually these sell before we even pull them. We'll take pre-dismantle deposits on them. Unfortunately, that frame is one of the only things in my entire yard that I do not do a pre-dismantle price on. The only thing you can do is lock it down, secure it, and we can get it pulled for you. And what I mean by that is a lot of our tubs on our YJs, TJ tubs, that kind of stuff, we usually hook people up with a little bit of a price difference if they put a down payment on it and allow us to cash flow the business that way. We take a little bit, and then they're guaranteed that it's in as good or better quality, and they save a couple $100 essentially is how that works. So a couple hundred mean about 500 usually. So, but that TJ frame does not have that. Unfortunately, they're just too hard to get, and especially the real clean ones. So all right, so back to YJ tubs. We still have some decent YJ tubs left that are higher grades. I think we only have 2 or 3 left. We have some trash ones. This one's going to be, this is an Ohio Jeep right here. Look at this rust bucket. I've had this Jeep in my yard since 2019, and I literally, when I was in Ohio delivering, I had a guy, had a plow on it, and I had a guy ask me if I could take it for him out of his yard, and I was like, well, free Jeep. When I got there, I was like, I don't know what's left on this thing. But I will say we got an ECM. Those are hard to get. 91, 95. Those are super hard ECMs. We got a clean wiring harness. Surprisingly, the wiring harness is all usually good. And that's about it. This Jeep is sat here, and I almost use it as an example for what not to buy, because this would be very, very expensive. You would need a whole, you need a frame, you need axle, you need a tub. You know, yes, you'd get a VIN if you bought something like this and maybe a good motor, but I usually shy people away from it. Here's one. Look at this bad boy. This was a local farmer. I'd actually helped build this Jeep a couple years ago and got ready for his son. It was one of our local, I don't want to say millionaires, but well-off clients. And he gave it to his son. Son went out drinking one night, and he's lucky that he lived, because this is the one we leave around and show parents with kids turning 16 on what not to let them do. No, I'm just teasing. It's just, we pulled off what we can. A lot of the stuff just needs to get gotten rid of, but we got some diet tires on it still. That's another one we got. This one's Kansas City. This is almost exactly like that one. I delivered a tub frame to him, and asked me if I would take this thing away. And this one actually, even though it's Kansas City and does have a little bit of rust on it, had some good parts on it. So I think we gave him $1,000 for it, which is extremely cheap for a YJ. I mean, people always think that we get these things for nothing. A wrecked one like that, $1,000. We didn't get anything, major on it, but this guy came from a local police officer. It's actually a fully Rhino line tub. We've actually kept this one whole and thinking we'd sell them as a package. So we got an engine out of it. It's got an automatic in it, rebuilt auto sitting under there, and it was kind of a cool Jeep. It's got neat fenders on it, so a little bit of rust in the frame on that one, but not too bad. So that one's available for a project if somebody was looking for a project. I would say that would be the one I would do out of this yard as far as that goes. And then these are absolutely just bottom of the barrel CJs we've picked up in fields out here for, I wish, next to nothing, but unfortunately CJ anything is expensive. So, all right. And then axles, tub. I was trying to find that frame. Sitting around here somewhere. Might be up front. I mean, these axles are in tip-top shape. There's almost no rust as far as surface rust, scaling, bracket issues, anything like that. I mean, these are, you know, oxidized if at most. And most of these are checked out, although I got to do, there's a CJ one that's got some rust issues there. That's a parts axle. But we check them all out, bearings, seals, ring and pinion, spider gears. And if they need to be replaced, we'll do that. 4-banger YJ frame. That one looks like it's in pretty good shape. There's a 02 blue tub there. We got 2 nice JK tubs. These are nice and rust-free. A couple dings, but nothing major. Both of those are early, 7 to 10. And they do matter because they change the interiors on them. And we got 1 4-door JKU frame out there. And those are actually sell pretty quick. So do the 4-door tubs, but they need to be completely stripped down before we list them. Look at this beauty. This was one of those tubs that we had. This one's actually going to Texas here in a couple days. And it's a CJ7. And this is the quality that you get out of here for a CJ tub. So solid floors, solid unders, torque pockets, beautiful corners, beautiful. Bolts all came out. A couple little dings there in the back, but nothing major there. It needs to be repaired there, but. And so that one's already spoken for, but nonetheless, and then here's the frame that it had underneath it. We got some rare axles. This is an 86. It's got the 44. So only did in that year. So that's either going to my Jeep or find somebody that wants to spend a small fortune on them, because that's hard. That one's a hard one to find. This is the one that is tweaked. Now I can see it. It's here. It's on this side. But looking at this, you'd almost have to, like I said, I mean, you can tell. And more than likely, because the front end was solid, the bumper was untouched, the fenders were untouched, the back was untouched, the pockets that go to your frame, they're not all kinked. Sometimes they get kinked pretty easily when they're twisted. You can tell, kind of like that YJ had back there when they get hit. The back is solid, the front, all that's good. These 2 bolts they're spinning, so those will have to be figured out. But it hasn't been washed yet, just sitting as it came out. And so usually on this one, we know when we pulled it, the knuckle, the outer bearing, the wheel bearing was bad. And it didn't look very old. So more than likely, especially here in Colorado where we get some ice storms, it was probably curb checked, but it's hard to say. And that would have, especially a hard curb check, will just so much bend a frame in. So, you know, you could do this the easy way and take a porta power and probably get it as straight as you possibly could that way, and possibly even usable that way. Or we have, we don't do any of the work here. We used to have a body shop here. We have the anchors in the floor, and a couple of the guys used to work for me could do that kind of stuff. But we just pass them along. You'll save the money on it. So this is one of the discounted frames that you can get right now for a TJ. And I have not scoped that one. I don't think there'll be any issues with it. I felt the inside here and here. We do need to still do that. We will still do that, but it just kind of got put on the back burner with that. So, and then 2 mounts. So 2 of your belly pan mount holes here, and then that up there, obviously, unless you're going to be using the back half or something, and I guess you don't have to worry about it. So, all right. There was one I missed out there. I don't know if I have time. I got to get some other stuff done right now. In this video being 30 minutes long is already going to take up a ton of time to upload here on our Western Colorado Starlink internet, which is about all we can get out here. We used to have radio internet. It was really bad. But there's another TJ. It's a white one. that's got a frame under it. It's a 4-cylinder. There's a little bit of a backstory on this one. I haven't got it out to see if the frame isn't tweaked. This one, they had another young girl up in Hotchkiss, which is a little bit up the mountain from us, went off an embankment in this one, and I went up and seen it because she lived, but she's lucky. It was another granddaughter. You get a lot of those. But when it came down flat, like literally flat in a fairly large rock field. I mean, it didn't hardly do anything to the tub. The axles were actually okay. I just couldn't believe that striker's been pulled, so I was gonna say shove it. A couple dings on the tub, but being this is a Colorado Jeep, this is probably gonna be a fairly solid tub. It'll have a little bit of damage on it. And hopefully that frame is good, and it's hard to say with it up in there. It really depends on when we pull it, if it binds. And obviously we can measure it out and see if that, everything on that's it. But it doesn't look like if it was, my guess if it's been at all, it may even been bent up. But again, it's hard to say. We got a block under it, so. All right, I appreciate all your time, and hopefully that answers some questions for you. Just let us know what you want to do, and we'll put it together. There's obviously quite a bit of work involved on some of these left, so we'd have to get a deposit before we pretty much go any further, so you can kind of go through this video, check off what you're kind of wanting. The pricing Chris gave you earlier is the initial price was of a lot more tubs, it sounded like, than you want. When I added it back up without the tubs, we were only a little bit less because we gave you a lot better pricing in the beginning with buying more. When I flipped them over to YJ frames, because that's really what we have left, pretty much the same pricing on that. So if you have a price in mind, and I tell all my guys this when they're talking to customers, sometimes people just rattle off card numbers, but when we're dealing with budgets, it's no problem, but we do need to know that going into it. You're not going to get any worse pricing or better pricing if you tell me, hey, I got $7,000 to spend, and I ask you, okay, my next question is that delivered or is that here? Is that picked up, or is that plus transport? And that's really going to determine what we can do for you guys. So his hands are tied because of me, and I only do things a certain way. I've been doing this for 18 years, so it's the only way, besides this video, we don't take a ton of time and start pulling stuff. So we'd have to get an inventory down, what you're wanting, pin it down to be almost exactly. And then if we get into something, we find out, let's say, for example, that frame is bent. Okay, we're going to price it that it is, so that's not going to be an issue as far as pricing goes. If it's not bent, we're not going to upcharge you. If it is bent, then we knew that going into it. But if we find something else, let's say it's bent, it's got something rusty in the rear of it, we come back to you on it and you go, well, I can deal with that, but I don't want to pay that much. Okay, we'll knock it a little down a little bit. If it's, or you can say, I just take that one out. So that's kind of how that sets up for us and for you guys. So giving me a budget is 100% in your favor as far as working out a deal. And if I can't do it, I'm going to tell you right up front, not waste your time and not waste our time. So, all right. Good?
Yep.
Okay. 303-666-9020, partsbreakers.com. And we'll talk to you guys later. It's May, what is it, 13th?
14.
May 14th, 2024.